Hi, my name is Sonia Waters. I teach pastoral theology at Princeton Theological Seminary, and I work also at Trinity Church in Princeton. And I am here to offer you another video on emotional regulation, but this one, I'm hoping to give you some of the background behind emotional regulation, at least from a cognitive behavioral therapy modality, to see if you can use them and see if they're useful for you at home. To take an eye on your own emotional states. So first, some caution tape, obviously, around this discussion. I'm not talking about abuse, about victimization, about situations of trauma. A negative appraisal of those kinds of situations is the best appraisal, and your safety is the most important thing. I'm also not trying to offer an adjustment or an accommodation kind of model for oppressive or unjust situations. So in other words, I'm not saying, oh, just think about it differently or manage how you feel while you're being oppressed. I'm not saying that either. But I am suggesting that there is a psychological warfare that goes on in structural oppression, where anxiety, depression, and hopelessness are evoked to such an extent that we disempower ourselves. And so in some ways to enter into practices that help us to care for ourselves can allow us to act, to resist, to live out our values for justice in our communities and in the nation, while doing our best to take care of our own wellness in that process. So with that caution tape around this, we are also in the middle of a pandemic, locked inside with partners and children and Zoom calls. We have a lot of socioeconomic stress, a lot of losses in our personal lives as well as in our nation. And negative thinking can take over in debilitating kinds of ways. Some of us are more prone to negative thinking. I am more prone to negative thinking, which is kind of why I enjoy the cognitive behavioral therapy model, because I see myself in it. All right, so let me offer you some skills which I found helpful, and hopefully that they can also help you as well. So what we're thinking then is an event, something happens. Somebody on a Zoom call interrupts me, contradicts me at work. I tell myself something. They don't like me in this work environment. I'm always treated this way. I failed. I feel something lonely, helpless, anxious. I do something. I might drink too much. I might act out. I might yell at my spouse. I might withdraw and not engage in my work life as well as I could. Or I might become competitive and fight back with this person, assuming they don't like me and who interrupted me. As quickly as that, we can assume something and then feel something, and then it can take over our behavior. So it's crucial to understand how these are all connected. This worksheet is a great thing to do. If you find yourself troubled by, distressed by, overwhelmed by your feelings, or if you're entering into behaviors that are not optimal for your well-being, or you're responding in either aggressive or withdrawn ways to other people, this is a great worksheet to try to do. What was the event that set you off? What was the thought you told yourself? What was the feeling that happened? What did I do? So from a cognitive behavioral therapy model, thoughts, behavior, and feelings are interactive. And we can influence one side by changing or examining another part of the triangle. You can also pause when you experience one part, like you do a behavior that's kind of troubling to you and you're like, why do I always do that? Or perhaps you have a negative thought that keeps on going in your head. Or perhaps you have a feeling that you haven't thought through, but you just know you feel rejected by somebody, or sad, or overwhelmed, or anxious. And if we adjust the other parts of the triangle, we might change how we feel, change how we think, or we might change our behavior through those adjustments. We can also pause when we experience one part and reflect on how the other sides are connected to it. So for instance, if you feel depression or hopelessness, let's say at our national situation, is there something you can do, for instance, a behavior that protest, write a letter, Donate to a cause, vote, right? This is something you can do. Get educated, right? Is there something that you can do that can then adjust your feeling of hopelessness? Or perhaps if you blame your partner for your emotional states, I know I certainly do sometimes, is there a way you can respond differently? So I might blame my partner for something that I take personally. Perhaps I don't have to withdraw and sulk like I usually do. Perhaps I can respond differently. I can ask about their intentions or ask about what they were thinking when they said that thing or did that thing. Can I reality test or nuance my thinking behind this? My thought behind it might be, oh, my partner doesn't like me, doesn't love me, doesn't respect me. Is there evidence to the contrary? Is it just that I'm having a bad day or that my partner's having a bad day? Now, of course, if there's no evidence to the contrary, you might be in an abusive relationship. Remember, there's caution tape around this discussion. But imagining that your emotions might be elevated during a time of pandemic, is there a way that you might be more nuanced in how you respond to this situation or the assumptions you're making about this situation? My favorite cognitive behavioral therapy mental filters um, called cognitive distortions. All or nothing thinking, we see this a lot in our nation right now, where a situation or a person is either or with no possible nuance. We can get this way about people when they hurt our feelings. We can decide that they're all bad at the office or even at home or in our families. Catastrophizing, I love this one. I do this one all the time. And in our current national state, I'm finding myself doing it more and more. I predict the future at the most extreme of negative consequences with little evidence. There's actually some evidence that catastrophizing is not too far off the mark today. There are some really seriously scary things happening in our world. And so it's not that kind of catastrophizing. It's not catastrophizing that has some evidence to it, but it's catastrophizing that has little evidence. Disqualifying the positive. And so when we do something good, and I do this too, then I sort of attribute it to luck. Oh, well, phew, I'm glad I got through that lecture or that thing. And I don't consider that I don't pat myself on the back and say, oh no, I was good at that. That was a good thing. I should feel proud. But if I do something wrong, wow, I really take that on personally, but not the positive. Emotional reasoning, something is true because you feel it strongly, discounting evidence to the contrary. There's absolutely not anything wrong with having strong feelings. Indeed, strong feelings can often be an indicator that an alarm system that tells us to pay more attention to our lives. But feeling is not the only way that we can assess our situations. Labeling, putting fixed, totalizing labels on self or other, and nobody therefore is complex, fully human, or people with their own motivations and nuanced personalities, right? Magnification and minimization, you magnify the negative traits, you minimize when something positive happens. This is also something that can happen in depression and anxiety, where, again, those negative things just feel more real and feel more scary, while the positive things just tend to fall away. We don't notice them as much. A really good thing to do to counter this is gratitude lists. I know that sounds cheesy, but I'm telling you it works. In fact, the fact that we don't want to do it just shows us how much we really enjoy to magnify the negative, right? We don't like to think about the positive. But indeed, most life is a combination of both. Mind reading, this is psychoanalytically a projection process as well. So, and this is a problem with Zoom, right? Because people are out of context and we don't have those we can't really feel them in context on Zoom. And so it's very easy to decide that we know what they're thinking and feeling and that it's probably negative and that it's probably about us, right? That gets to personalization. You believe that others are behaving in negative ways because something you did or said. So somebody gets mad at a work meeting and you start to feel guilty. Somebody says, well, we have to call a meeting and figure out a problem. You assume you're the problem, that you did something, right? Everything is taken personally. Should statements, don't should on yourself. You guys know this because most of us do this, but in a pandemic, when everything is increasingly imperfect, should statements could just very well kill you. So be very careful about your shoulds. And then overgeneralization, making sweeping statements, drawing conclusions that go far beyond the situation. Things really should be held critically and with evidence and with a certain amount of reality testing. So consider that chart or consider the triangle. It's something that you can just write on a piece of paper. And then when you're overwhelmed or disturbed by your own actions or thoughts or your feelings, you can see if you can make some connections. It could be that you have some of these tendencies to filter information through a negative lens. And it's really good to know that. And again, some things are negative, absolutely. But most things are more nuanced than we give them credit for. And this can help us to relieve our anxiety and then see what actions we actually can take to make a more just world, to make a more emotionally healthy family life, and to let go of some of the ways that we abuse ourselves with this negativity that is no help to anyone. These things can grow in this isolating condition that we're now in. So take care of yourself. You deserve it. You deserve to have a whole and rich and much more complicated life than these emotional reactions give you. And so be blessed, and I'll see you again soon.